Hello, it's again Miss Parish, and today I'm going to be going over MLA for our week 2 video. Usually in the past I've started out with a review of MLA towards the middle of the semester, but since we're going to be working with it so much this semester, I kind of wanted to go over it today right from the get-go in week 2, and this presentation is something you can always go back to and watch over and over again. I hope that you've used MLA in your English 121 class. I realize that maybe you took that class a while ago, or maybe if you're a high school student taking this class, you've not interacted much with MLA. So this presentation and video is kind of just a refresher on MLA. If you don't know what MLA is, this presentation, which I'm going to be putting up on our resources, our syllabus handouts and videos page, it's actually a pretty long presentation, but I'm going to start right around the middle of it because that's where we actually get to talk about MLA, how to cite properly, how to use in-text citations, things like that. So I'm going to start here with this slide, basically reviewing what MLA is. It is the Modern Language Association, basically a group of English professionals got together and decided, how do we give credit to things that people use as reference? And it kind of makes sense because if you've spent years, a lot of these scholars that wrote your textbook, that write books or research this sort of stuff, it takes them years to do that. And there's no worse feeling than spending years on some project and then not getting credit for it when someone else kind of talks about it. So that's what MLA is for. Now, when MLA started, the main thing people were citing were books. So it was very simple. Now, MLA lets you cite anything. You can cite tweets, you can cite emails, you can cite YouTube videos, you can cite books and magazines and newspapers and movies and Netflix, and pretty much anything. So while the benefit is that you can cite any source of media as a source for your paper, the problem is it makes things a little bit more complex in how we cite them. But luckily, I don't think MLA is hard if you get the basics down. So that's what this presentation is for. And you guys can kind of see that there. All right. So MLA technically has two parts. The first part is the reference page or the works cited page that's always at the end of your essay. That's probably what people think of the most when they think MLA. It's your works cited page, but the other thing are in-text citations, which are throughout your essay. I always use the analogy that if you're on a website, you see a little hyperlink, and if you click on that hyperlink, it takes you to a new page. Well, an in-text citation is essentially a little hyperlink in your paper that shows me, the reader, what source you're going to be using on your works cited page. So it kind of references what I'm eventually going to see when I get to your works cited page, which is handy because, believe it or not, when I read your guys' research papers that you'll do at the end of the semester, I actually do visit your websites and your sources quite a bit. So it's helpful when I'm reading your paper to know which source you're citing in that moment. So those are kind of the two things that this presentation is going to look for: the in-text citations and the works cited page. In-text citations are actually not difficult. A lot of students think they're this complicated, complex thing, and they're really not. They're very easy. All an in-text citation is that at the end of where you cite information in your paper, whether it's a quote, whether you're paraphrasing, whether it's a picture, it's just a little piece of text in parentheses that will show me which site basically you're citing. So in this example here, at the very end here in parentheses, I have ilstu.edu, which is Illinois State's website. That's the source that I'm citing, and that is the in-text citation. That's it. No long URL with slashes and .htmls, none of that. It's just very simple website here, ilstu.edu. That's all I need. I don't need www, none of that. And as you can see, I've put the comma before the in-text citation and the punctuation after it. So this is nicely contained within the sentence that I'm citing. That's how you should write an in-text citation. There are really two types of in-text citations. One are for print sources and one are for digital. And in all honesty, it's sort of like a hierarchy. There's an in-text citation you always start with, and if that doesn't work, you go to the next one and then the next one and so on and so forth. So as long as you get down what I'm about to show you, steps, either option A or option B, there's no way to get these wrong. All right. So the first thing are print in-text citations for print sources. I'm going to move my little box with my stuff around a little bit, so maybe it's a little bit easier to see. All right. So in a print source, you have an author, typically, as if you were citing a book or citing a newspaper, etc. And typically you have a page number with a print source. So as you can see here, if my source has an author and I don't state it in the paper, then, which most of you probably won't, then I'm going to put as my in-text their last name and the page number, and that's it. That's all you need for the in-text citation. That should be your go-to. At the end of my quote, or at the end of whatever information from the source I'm paraphrasing or writing in my own words, I should have in parentheses at the very end the last name and the page number, if it's a print source. That's it. If for some reason my source does not have an author, then I just put the title of the book or title of the print source and the page number. That is all I need. That is my in-text. Now, a lot of people say, well, do I need an in-text citation after every time my source is mentioned? Yes. The exception to that would be if, let's say, I cite the same source 5 times in the same paragraph. I don't want to have to keep put Billingsley 14 at the end of each of my 5 sentences, and it'll just look awkward. So what I can do is, let's say this is the end of the paragraph, I can just put it once there and not have to repeat it over and over again. So you have that option. Digital sources, I think, are honestly even easier than print sources, because with digital sources there are no page numbers. YouTube, there's no page numbers. A website, there's no page number. A tweet, an email, none of those have page numbers, so that is completely taken out if you use a digital source. If you are using a digital source, the only in-text citation is either one of two things. First, it's, like we did with print sources, the author's last name and the last name alone. So you can see the article noted, there's no way to beat the Rubik's Cube in under 4 seconds, quotation marks, in-text, period. Done. However, if there's no author to a website, which may happen, or if I state it in the actual sentence, like I say Billingsley stated, then option number 2 is that you just put the basic web URL as the in-text. So like in this case it says just nytimes.com. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So as long as whenever you cite a source in your paper, whether you paraphrase it or mention a source or anything within the source, or you cite it directly using quotations, if you do that, then at least at the end of your paragraph, you need to have this in-text citation showing me where those sources are from. Okay? And as we go along with these first couple of papers, you do get to revise papers 1 through 3. So if you make a mistake or if something needs to be changed, I'll note that on your paper so that you can revise it for the future. And that's in-text citations. It's pretty easy. Alright, so in-text citations are easy. Where it gets a little complicated are the works cited pages. So at the top of the works cited page, which is at the end of your essay, you can label it works cited page, reference page, bibliography, whatever you're comfortable with. I'll know what you're talking about. The way that I look at MLA is it's sort of the math of English. It is a formula, and it is a rarely minutely changing formula, as you'll see with these examples. So on your works cited page, no matter what sources you use, you should organize them in alphabetical order by the first word that appears in this quote or in the citation. So if you're If, let's say, you start with the last name on one source and then the second source doesn't have an author and it's just the first letter of the title, whatever alphabetically comes first, that's where you put it. So just keep that in mind. All right, I have this question happen a lot, so I kind of wanted to go over it. I have a lot of people ask, how do I know whether I put titles in quotation marks or italics? Italics is this over here, quotation marks are here. This page you should reference always, because this is the difference between what we put in italics and what we put in quotation marks. The way I see it is, if it is a large text, an entire book, an entire novel, an entire TV show, an entire website, an entire musical album, you put it in italics. Big texts are in italics. If what you're citing is a part of a big text, you put it in quotation marks. So, for example, if I'm doing a chapter in the book, in our Discovering Literature textbook, Discovering Literature, the book itself, as you'll notice when I give you guys handouts and things, Discovering Literature is always in italics because it is a big book. It's the bigger text. But in the presentations, you may have noticed, I will label fiction, chapter 1 preview. It will be in quotation marks because it's a smaller part, it's a chapter of a bigger book. So the smaller part is in quotation marks, larger part or the whole is italics, in italics. So, and you can kind of see where I have TV shows in italics, but episodes of that TV show are in quotation marks, and so on and so forth. So just kind of keep that in mind. Feel free to come back and reference this if you need to, but I just want to make those distinctions available to you all. All right, so when you see the word medium listed here, I'm not talking about psychics. I'm talking about what is the type of source that we're citing. Is it, a digital source, which will be called web. Digital is always called web with MLA. It's a little bit old, but it works. Or is it print, which means that it's a handheld text. And this is the basic formula of MLA. It always goes author last name, author first name, the title, the publisher, the date, and the medium, web or print. This is the basic formula that MLA will always follow with a few variances. All right? MLA is obsessed with who wrote it, so that's why the author is always listed first. And it's last name, comma, first name, like you would see in a library. All right, so let me get this pulled back up here. What I wanted to do was kind of start out talking about how to cite books, because books are the kind of original MLA citation. How you cite a book in MLA is you start with the author's last name, a comma, and then their first name. If you have more than one author, so let's say, so I'm going to pull up this Word document. Let's say I have multiple authors. All right, let's say I have Jane Doe. I'm going to start out with Doe, comma, Jane, and then I can do John Smith. So the second name you do not have to put last name and then first name. It's just this one here for looking up purposes. Then I'm going to have a period. I'm going to have the title of their book. Let's say, I'll just make something up. Since it's the title of a whole book, I'm going to put it in italics. Let's get my italics up here. Then what I want to do, according to our chart, is do the city of publication and then the publisher. All right. So, city, let's just say Harrisburg. I don't need the state, just the city, and we'll say Bulldog Press is my publisher. Then you put the year it was published and the medium, which in this case it's a book, so it's print. And that's it. That is a perfectly cited book in MLA. Now if you have 3 authors, I would do Jane Doe, John Smith, and Patty Jenkins. And that's it. If for some reason I have 4 authors or more, which does happen sometimes with the textbooks, MLA makes it to where you only include the first name and then the Latin words et al., which means and everyone else. So if you're in the publishing industry, it's really important you get that first namesake there, otherwise you're not getting credit if you collaborate with more than 3 other authors. So yeah, that's citing a book. It's fairly easy, right? Right? But yeah, so it's a pretty standard way of formatting. It's the basic formula for MLA. We just need the city for books because it's something that will be included on any book that you purchase. They'll say what city it was published in, so MLA wants it to be there. I'm going to guess most of you, though, are probably going to cite web pages, which is fine. We live in the digital age, right? So if you're citing a web page, not much actually changes. You still have your author last name and your author first name. Then you have, in quotation marks, because it's a smaller part of a bigger whole, you have the title of the web page. Then you have the big part, the web URL, the website address itself. Then you'll list the publisher who made the website, which we'll get into that in a second, the date it was published, the medium, and there's one extra thing. It's called the access date, and web pages will have this. And all that is it tells me when did you access this resource. The reason why they want you to include the access date is it's sort of like insurance for you as the writer. If I'm reading your research paper and I see that you found this source and used it on this date, then I kind of have to hold you to what you knew about that source at that time. Let's say the day after you find this source, some big news story breaks and it discredits everything you've said. Because you have that access date there, I can't dispute your claims because I'm like, oh, well, they didn't know about it when they wrote the paper. So that's why that's there. So here's an example. Again, we have author's last name, Murphy, and then Tanya. We have the title of the web page, Immigration Reform on the Forefront, in quotation marks. Please notice how the web URL is written. It just says NY Times. There's no www, no .com, no .org, no not /ht500.html, none of that garbly-gook. It is just the essential web URL, NY Times. That's all we need. If you want to put a .com, I won't count off on it because I can understand why you want to do that, but that's all we need. No wwws, no http / none of that. Just the website. And then you have who publishes the new NY Times, which is the New York Times Online. I will say this, most of your publishers are going to be exactly like your web URL because it's just a marketing thing. A website's not going to be parishfarms.com and then the publisher be like Daisy Ridley Anonymous. It's not going to be like that, right? These are probably going to be very similar, if not the same thing, only your publisher will be the written out version of your website. Then you have your date. If there's not a publication date, which there may not be, you put n.d. here, which means no date. Then you put the medium web, and then the access date. Now your access date and publication date are both written the same way. You have your day first, then your month, and then your year. And typically you will abbreviate your months, unless it's a month like June or May or July. Alright, so that's a web page. It's very similar to the book. It's just instead of a city of publication, you have the website it's located on, and you have the publisher of that website. But everything else pretty much stays the same. Again, here's how you would cite days. You would do the day, then the month, and then the year. Or as you can see with May, I didn't have to abbreviate anything. And again, please do not put www. on MLA citations. I know some of you that are in high school or some of you that haven't taken MLA in a while, this may all look very new to you, but it is the most updated form. So I try to keep pretty updated with MLA, and I try to make sure that we're citing correctly. MLA changes every couple of years, so your instructor in the past, if they've not been teaching you like this, that's all right. They may be using a version that's outdated, or they may be simplifying it for their own class. But for this class, I really want you to focus on using MLA the correct way, because chances are you're going to be using this in another college class, and you need to know how to do it. All right, journal articles are going to be in your assignment this week. Um, it will say peer-reviewed journal articles. That just means that it's a journal article that has been reviewed. If you ever decide to publish in a journal, like let's say the American Heart Association, let's say their journal, then your article will be sent typically to 2 blind reviewers, not physically blind, but blind in the sense that they don't know who you are. Your name is not included on the submission, and they will look over that article. If both of them think it fits, then you get published. But if one of them says, I don't think the article's strong enough for our journal, it's rejected. It can't be 50-50, it has to be 100% or not. So when I say a peer-reviewed journal, that means that it's a journal that has very high standards of publication. And so it's hard to get published in, so chances are the articles themselves are going to be factual and very credible to use. And journals are hard because not all journals are online. There are still so many print journals, and they have so many parts. I mean, when I was a kid, I read 17 magazine. There were 12 issues of that in a year, and it's still publishing. So you think of how many volumes and issues that is, it makes it very complicated to keep track and cite properly. So that's why journals look a little different than your other sources in MLA. But this is how you cite a journal. It's the author's last name and first, like we've been doing. The title of the article itself, very similar to the web page. And then the journal title. So the title of the journal that the article has been printed in will be in italics. So up until this point, everything seems like you would normally cite. But then there's this right here, this part here that is very different than any other source in MLA. Because most journals have volumes and issues, they want the volume, a period, and then the issue. And as you'll note below, I don't write out volume, I don't write out issue, I just put 14.5. That's all I need. Then the year that it was published is in parentheses, like I've done down here. Then you put a colon, these 2 dots, and then the pages of that article, and then the medium, which will most likely be print. But please reference back when you guys are doing your scavenger hunt assignment that is due this week. Please make sure to reference back to this presentation, because this is basically how you're supposed to cite whatever source you find. So I do think it will be helpful to have this on file as you work on the assignment. All right, and I list on here other sources that will help, Purdue OWL being a big one. I'm going to go ahead and go to Purdue OWL just to kind of show you guys what it looks like. This is Purdue OWL's website. It's ran by Purdue University in Indiana. They are awesome. They have an amazing English program, and they have an entire unit of people that just manage this site, which is pretty cool. As you can see here, it was last edited on November 15th of 2017. So they've last updated it back in November. But they keep track of everything pretty well. If there's any changes with MLA, they'll note it. Now looking at this site, you may notice that it looks a little overwhelming. There's a lot on here. And to be honest, most of this are for people in grad school that have to do extreme MLA formatting for their theses or dissertations. But for our sake, there are some links that are pretty helpful. And up towards the top, the one that says the basics, endnotes and footnotes, basic format, and then these 3 links here, or these 4, this top part here is probably our best help. Now in-text citations, that link will give you just some examples about how to cite in-text citations. They give some examples down here and show you, but it's not too different than what you just saw in the presentation. With Works Cited, they show you, you're supposed to double space, citations, blah, blah, blah. They kind of show you what's new, how to do more than one author. They go through a lot. I honestly think these 4 links right here are the most helpful. The books, periodicals, electronic sources, and other common sources. Books, it's pretty much what we learned in the presentation on how to cite. Nothing much different there. Periodicals will go over journals. newspapers, magazines, if you stumble across any of those sources to use. I really like electronic and other common sources. Electronic sources talk about some different ways to cite, like an entire website, an image, like if you're going to cite a painting or a sculpture, a scholarly journal article, an email, a listserv, a tweet. You can cite a tweet. It's adorable. You just put the whole tweet there, and then even the time. It's so cute. I love tweet sites. And then a YouTube video, which you can see here. There's the last name and first name, or in this case they left out the username. Then the title of the video, YouTube in italics, uploaded by, and they have the name of the person, then the date, and they actually put the web URL at the very end for the video. So that has changed a little bit in the last few years, how you cite a YouTube video, but that is how you would do it. And I encourage you to write this down or go back and look at this site, because chances are you may end up citing a video interview or something of similar nature in your paper. And then other common sources talk about citing an interview. Interviews are the easiest things to cite in the world. They're so easy. Look, personal interview, last name, first name, personal interview, the date of the interview. That's all you need for your scavenger hunt that you all do. Make up an interview. Just make something up like this. That will be the easiest points you get on that assignment. I just want to see that you know how to cite an interview if you ever conduct one, because they're easy. And then we have published interviews, speeches or lectures. You can cite notes from your classes you're taking or have taken in a paper. Again, sculptures, songs, it just goes through film and movies. It shows you how to cite those. TV shows, it goes through a whole bunch of things. MLA is great if you're trying to cite multiple resources, because it will let you cite anything. APA and some other ones are kind of like, you shouldn't cite a video. MLA is like, we got this. So that's pretty much it about MLA. I will go ahead and tell you guys, if you note on the scavenger hunt, I do ask to try to use the library resources for at least one of your assignments. And this is our homepage at sic.edu. If I go up here to the top, you'll see this library resources link. I'm going to click on it, and you'll notice there's a lot of different sources, a lot of different links to do. These are all the databases to find information on. I personally am going to find this first link right here, find online articles. I think it's the easiest. And they give you all these different search engines, which some of them work great, some of them don't. If I had to choose, I would always pick LexisNexis. I really like LexisNexis, but unfortunately, oh, I got my ID. Not on campus. So if you try to log in at home, it's going to look something like this. But this is LexisNexis. I like it because I think the search engine's really customizable with picking your sources. Let's say I'm going to try to find something on the movie Get Out. Say I'm going to look up a movie review. It's searching for it. Alright, it's pulled up 998 sources, which is way too much to sort through. I don't have all day to do that. So if you'll notice on the side here, there's this handy dandy little narrowing tool that shows me all the different kinds of sources I could pick from. There's news, there's newsletters, there's newspapers and magazines. I'm going to pick magazines and journals because one of your scavenger hunt items is to find a journal article. So I'm going to do that. So now I'm down to 51, a much more reasonable number. Let's say I want to go, and they list different kinds of journals here. Let's do the Toronto Star. Let's do that. Blog your way to a free movie. I don't like that. No, let's go back. Hollywood Reporter, maybe? Okay. These are little, and so as you can see here, it tells you the website, the date of publication, how many words it is, all that. I'm going to go to news. I'm not liking any of these sources. Okay, let's do the Irish Mirror. So I'm going to click on this source. All right. So this, what pulls up in the library resources, gives me all of my information for my citation. It tells me the title, which is right here, which I would put in quotation marks. It gives me the author, their last name, and then first name. So if I'm citing this source right here, let me pull my Word document back up. If I'm citing this source, and I'm just going to copy and paste for good measure, because otherwise it's going to take forever to type all that out. All right. So got my title. I know I'm supposed to put my author before my title, so I'm going to do Oakley. Don't worry, I'll make all this match up here in a minute. Oakley, Matt. All right, and then the website, as I can see here, is irishmirror.ie. irishmirror.ie. And then it's published by Irish Mirror. And the date, does it give me a date? It does. I'll do 15 March 2016 web, and then today's access date would be 27 February 2018. And I will highlight this and italicize it since it's the site, and now I'll make all of this the exact same size. So yeah, it's done. It's cited. That was it. The nice thing about LexisNexis, though, too, is if you look up here at the top, they let you save the source. You can email it to yourself. You can print it off. Now, this export bibliographic, I'm trying to see if they cite it right, because they have their own citation thing, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not digging that. But some of these search engines will offer you, they'll offer to cite it themselves, or you may go to EasyBib or a citation generator. Just be careful, because some of those sites don't update with MLA, so some of them may be out of date, and if you use them, they may not cite it the right way. Also, Microsoft Word, do not use their MLA citation generator. I've had students use it over and over again. It has never been right. Something has always been wrong with it. So my rule of thumb would be to practice just doing it organically like this, where you just create the citation rather than use a generator or try to use some kind of formulaic program. I think doing it organically is the best way to help memorize, because you'll need to know how to use and cite sources in MLA for this class especially, but for your other ones. So practice makes perfect, I believe. But yeah, so that's how you use the library resources. And I can go back to that. So the scavenger hunt that you all are going to be doing is on our page. I'm going to log in and show you all real quick. Okay. So on our home page, if I go to weekly assignments and I scroll down to week 2, you guys do have an extra credit discussion forum, but we also have a scavenger hunt. All right. And the scavenger hunt, try to find where it is. We go to it is out of 20 points. I'm not going to show you guys the file that it's listed under. Alright, so for the scavenger hunt, what you all will need to do, is I want you to go out onto either the internet or look around your home or a friend's house or a relative's house, wherever you want to go to, a library, and I want you to find these 4 types of sources. A website or online article. The online article, it does not have to be from a magazine. An online magazine, it can be from, the New York Times, it can be from any type of news source, just an article out there. It can be from WSIL TV3. It can be any type of news article. But I want you to find a source like that. An interview, you can make it up. I told you guys when we were on Purdue Owl, interviews are easy to cite. You can make one up yourself, or you can find a published one. A print book, it can be our textbook if you want to cite it, or it can be another book that you found. And then a peer-reviewed journal, which is just an online or print journal that is professional, like American Heart Association, Communication Quarterly, anything like those. And I want you to find 4 sources, 1 for each of these. You can make up number 2, and all I want you to do for the scavenger hunt is cite the source in MLA using this presentation, Purdue Owl, what you've learned from 121. I just want to see you find these sources and try to cite them in MLA. And that's pretty much it. I figure this is a good starting point because you guys get to kind of look up and choose any site that you want, any source that you want, and then we'll kind of go from there to see where our skills and maybe hindrances are with MLA. But that's it. That's MLA in a nutshell. And we're going to be working with it a lot, so you may hear me reference or mention this presentation or talk more about MLA in the future, but that's pretty much it. I hope this helped you guys kind of refresh with MLA. We will be working with it a lot, so if you're still confused, don't worry. Just kind of spring yourself into the assignment and hopefully it goes good. Alright? But in any case, I hope you guys have a great spring break, and I will talk to you all later.